Hi, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this special discussion on India's next big leap from pharmacy to pharma powerhouse. My name is Vikas Dandekar, and I'm the pharma editor at the Economic Times. I'm delighted to be co moderating today's conversation with three exceptional leaders who are at the forefront of India's pharmaceutical and life sciences transformation. To help me in this task, I'm pleased to introduce uh, the global head of life sciences and healthcare thought leadership at Clarivate, Mike Ward, along with me. Mike, any preliminary thoughts that you have?
Yeah, I'm sure, Vikas. Delighted to be here. Yeah, as we stand in 2025, India finds itself at a defining moment, with projections indicating the pharmaceutical sector could grow from its current sort of $58 billion to $130 billion by 2030, and an ambitious $450 billion target by 2047. The question isn't whether India will remain relevant. It's whether India is ready to seize the moment as a global pharma superpower. So this trajectory is being accelerated by several powerful forces that are converging simultaneously. The US Biosecure Act has fundamentally reshaped the global supply chains, redirecting billions of dollars in manufacturing opportunities towards markets like India. With patent cliffs releasing over $236 billion worth of biologics and small molecules between 2025 and 2032, Indian companies again have unprecedented opportunities to expand their biosimilar and complex generics portfolios. And meanwhile, technological breakthroughs in AI-driven drug discovery, digital marketing, and green chemistry are redefining how innovative medicines reach patients worldwide.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. And yet, opportunity alone doesn't guarantee success. Today's discussion will explore not just the favorable winds at India's back, but the critical capabilities, strategic choices, and investments needed to convert potential into performance. Mike and I are honored to be joined by three leaders who embody this transformation. Deepak Sapra, CEO of API and Services at Dr. Reddy's Labs, a very reputed organization and a company that has built world class capabilities in complex API technology, high potency oncology molecules, to sophisticated chemical synthesis, while maintaining its commitment to sustainability and green chemistry principles. Next, we have Krishna Kanumuri, CEO and Managing Director at Sai Life Sciences, again, very recognized as India's fastest growing and only accurate end to end contract research, development, and manufacturing organization. These pioneering integrated partnerships span the entire spectrum from discovery through commercialization. Next, we have Amit Mookim, the very dynamic CEO of Immuneel Therapeutics, driving India's emergence in next generation cell and gene therapies, bringing cutting edge immunotherapy innovation to patients in India, and positioning the country as a hub for advanced biological medicines. So, Mike,
Yeah, yeah, sure. So, I mean, together, what we're going to do is we're going to explore five critical dimensions. Current market dynamics, which is driving the India pharma story, technological integration that's accelerating innovation, competitive positioning against global leaders, success stories demonstrating Indian capabilities, and investment perspectives shaping the sector's future. So we're going to start with a reflection on the current market dynamics. So over to you, Vikas.
sure. So, my first question to Deepak, Dr. Reddy's API division has been at the center of some significant shifts in global pharmaceutical sourcing. The discussions around Biosecure Act is back, and it has been described as a watershed moment for the Indian pharmaceutical industry. From your vantage point, supplying APIs to global innovators and generic manufacturers, how significant is this supply chain diversification actually proving to be? how you see this translate into tangible business opportunities, or is it still more exploratory in nature?
Thank you, Vikas. Am I audible?
Yes, very clearly.
Okay,
Thank you.
okay. Thank you. Thank you. So I think that's a great question, Vikas. When I look at this situation from the vantage point of Dr. Reddy's for the API and the CDMO business, which we run under the brand name Origin, when I look at it together, I think the supply chain diversification driven by the Biosecure Act, along with all the other shifts that we are seeing at a geopolitical level. So all of this is making the change not just an exploratory one, but something that's, let's say, tangibly very real. In what sense? One, of course, is that there is a very significant transformation in the global sourcing strategy. Certainly increased inbound interest from innovator companies and from generic companies who are reassessing their supply chains for the drug substance and also for the precursors to the drug substance to look at ways to reduce dependence on a single geography. You spoke of the Biosecure Act. I think the Biosecure Act is some sort of a catalyst, and these diversification plans, which have been long spoken of, I think for the past 6, 7 years, people have been talking of these. I think this has been perhaps one important trigger which has put these things into action. Now, what is it resulting in from my experience of the past couple of years, especially the past 12 months with the change in the administration in the US? Yes, there is an increase in the business uptick. Many of us are seeing more RFPs, requests for proposals. Many of us are seeing more tech transfer kind of requests, and there has been more onboarding of new customers, specifically looking to qualify Indian sources for their strategic APIs. There is an increase in the demand for backward integration to all the steps down to the place where it's there in the regulatory filing. So that's been clearly an opportunity. However, what I do want to mention is that this increase in RFPs, this increase in interest, has to eventually translate into an increase in business, which we are seeing a little bit of, but not to the extent that the RFPs are flowing in. And I think that will eventually have to be a balance between cost, between de-risking, between diversification of the supply chain, while making sure that the requirements from a technical and regulatory perspective are met. So in short, Vikas, yes, uh, good tailwinds, but a lot needs to be done in order to translate this into business.
So yeah, I mean that's really interesting, Deepak. I mean, the sort of that translation of the opportunity into sort of reality and business, I think is going to be sort of important. I mean, at Clarivate, we've got platforms called TELUS Competitive Intelligence, sort of the chemical patent intelligence, which track API manufacturing and also the regulatory landscapes. And I guess that's the kind of intelligence that helps Indian manufacturers plan their entry points and understand the sourcing risks much more confidently. So given that context, how is Dr. Reddy's strategically positioning itself to capture this China plus one opportunity, while maintaining excuse me, the quality and regulatory compliance that customers are going to demand?
Sure, sure. So, Mike, I think it's a very important point, but I do want to mention that China plus one, in the phrase China plus one, the important word is the plus, because when you look at global supply chains, including the supply chain of Dr. Reddy's themselves, we are looking at China as a very important partner and collaborator in the way forward. So, like everybody else, people are keen to de-risk, People are keen to diversify, and that's the endeavor. So it's not about replacing China at any step of the way. I think that's almost very, very difficult to achieve in the near term. What is important is to make sure how do you have the right balance between sourcing from China as well as sourcing from other parts of the world. Now, what is Dr. Reddy's doing? I think we are taking a multi-pronged approach. One is we are clearly deepening our vertical integration. What do I mean by that? All the starting materials and intermediates that go back from the API, we are trying to be vertically integrated on the ones which are most strategic. And this ensures supply security and also, to an extent, cost competitiveness. That's one thing that we are doing. The other thing which we are trying to do is that we are significantly expanding and modernizing our own manufacturing setup. Our API footprint is being expanded and modernized and automated. We are using a lot of newer technologies. We are using a lot of digital platforms in our manufacturing in order to make sure that our facilities are upgraded to meet the evolving global regulatory needs that you spoke about. And the third thing that we are doing is we are significantly investing. We are putting in a lot of capex. This capex is being deployed to enhance, let's say, multi-product flexibility and increase the capacity for certain high-demand molecules and certain technology platforms, which are going to be extremely relevant for the future. So those are kind of the dimensions that we are putting in place to make sure that we are well positioned to be a significant player in the China plus one opportunity, complementing China and leveraging the benefits of China as well as India.
Right. That was a very nice, detailed response. Thanks so much, Deepak. So I'll take the next question up with Krishna. Thanks again, and great to have you back after our discussions last week. So, Krishna, Sai Life Sciences is uniquely positioned as an end-to-end CRDMO. You've noted that innovator companies increasingly prefer integrated partners who can support them from discovery all through the manufacturing process. How is the current geopolitical environment, particularly supply chain diversification away from China, influence the types of partnerships and inquiries that you're receiving? Are companies just kicking tires, or are you seeing actual projects transfer and pilot programs really taking shape, materializing?
Perfect. Because thanks for having me. Always great talking to you. I guess maybe I think Deepak has done an exceptional job about covering what they're seeing in the market and what's going on. But I want to echo a couple of points which Deepak had made is that I don't think it's any longer. Biosecure Act is pretty much done and dusted. No point talking about it. I think it's very narrow in scope, doesn't have really much bandwidth. But the geopolitical realities are true. But if you look at the entire pharma ecosystem, taking a step back, I just want to link the context. If you look at the innovative pharma ecosystem which we play in, you have pretty much this. No company today believes they can do it all. They're depending on large pharmas, depending on the biotech for innovation. They're depending on CROs for basically back-end support. But what that means is there's much more technology integration and than we actually believe. So it's no longer a question of, I'm a large pharma, I've done this, you do a piece of work. They want companies who actually can invest along with them, learn with them, and be, I would say, significant partners to make their life easier and more cost effective. So the context of what has happened, if you take a step back in the last 15 years, most global pharma, be it biotech or large pharma, invested significant amount of their time and resources building up the China collaborations to go beyond just a pair of hands to work cross-modality, cross-functions, discovery, development, manufacturing, biotech. But if you look at the most successful companies, you will basically see WuXi, Pharma, who have done everything from start to finish. And where that becomes very, very relevant for pharma, the biggest challenge pharma has today is how quickly can we get to market? And also the range of technologies they're playing with, right? They're playing with small molecule, they're playing with peptides, ADCs, etc. So when you are across a platform beginning to end, there's an overlap at different points. I'm not going to say that you can start a molecule today and go all the way to the end because success rate is relatively small. But what we're seeing is, let's say you're doing discovery for a customer. There's certain technology we're developing for them. So early scale up, phase one scale up, there's integration and saving time there. Also, if you're doing late stage development and late stage manufacturing, there's again a cost saving for them between going from the lab to the plant quickly. So what we're seeing is because being integrated player, we are seeing strategic collaborations evolve through companies more broadly. They might start with manufacturing, then they'll start getting into development, or they are doing early discovery and they want to do early development. So what we're seeing overall, companies are looking at players in India who they believe are long-term partners. I think it goes beyond RFP. I think they're already picking that. Well, you asked the question of kicking the tires. I think they're past kicking the tires. I think they're at a point right now they know they have to be in India because India is the only country which provides cost and scale at least comparable to China.
Yeah.
Both Europe and US do not provide that. So I think people are finding companies with similar philosophies, enough critical mass focus, who will grow with them and invest along with them in the journey. That they're being realistic. They're saying, okay, I don't know, I don't believe any company in India is ready today, but I know for companies to be successful, we're going to have to invest in these companies. But to invest in the companies, they want to make sure there's a match in terms of philosophies, direction, and they're already picking strategic partners, and that is reflecting in business, right? We are seeing that across the globe. We are the fastest growing CRO for the last 3 years across discovery, development, and manufacturing, and cross modality, right? We always talk about small molecule, but now the conversations have gone to the global heads. They're saying, okay, how do you start playing in the ADC space? How are you
Yeah.
going to support the peptides? How are you going to do in bioconjugation? So they're coming telling us, this is the platform we're building. We'd like to teach you. Are you willing to invest and learn into it? So I think the opportunity is huge in just terms of the cooperation companies are showing right now in India. So it's a little long-winded answer, but I think the picture is much bigger than we really believe. I think just looking at a small time, we're making the big picture. I think India will be a serious player in the geopolitical ecosystem, or at least from the integrated services standpoint. Innovative drug discovery might be a little further along. And obviously, API, we already are ahead of the curve. So that's a little bit of a different take on it.
So, but Krishna, I mean, you sort of saying about sort of, sort of being sort of like, taken seriously, etc. I mean, I think you're being a bit modest. I mean, your company, you've grown your commercial portfolio from 5 molecules to 35 in just 3 years, and now are involved in about 10% of all small molecule launches globally. And when I look at sort of the data that we've got at Clarivate, whether it's CCI, CDI, CTI, I can tell you that what you've achieved is remarkable penetration. So I'd just like you to go a little bit deeper, sort of, in sort of what you were talking about. In this environment, what are the specific capabilities or services that are proving to be the strongest differentiators for Indian CRDMOs like yourselves when you are competing against established Chinese and European players?
So I think, look, the one aspect, Michael, is that people forget is that this is not something people are coming in and saying, okay, I'm going to go to a company because of specific technology. So we've been supporting large pharma for the last 15 years or so in this journey. But if you go back, India was a tactical outsourcing hub, whereas basically China was what you call a strategic outsourcing hub for them. So as we worked with pharma over a period of time, they always used to come to India and saying, look, this is what the shortfall you have. This is where you need to go. So we've been learning very, very closely from pharma over the last 15 years, even though the amount of business has been small. But every time a pharma has come in, we've made very forward-looking investments, be it in terms of being digital ready. We're probably by far ahead of everybody else in terms of digital readiness of plants. Our quality of plants are ahead of the curve for most people. R&D structure, we probably have one of the biggest R&D organization focused on innovation, even the R&D techniques. So basically, this is not coming from, there's not a single magic bullet. It's a question of they're looking at, hey, has this company kept its promise to us over the last X number of years? Have they been responsive? And they look at their track record and say, if I have trust a company going forward, do I go with the unknown commodity or know with the commodity who has done this over a period of time and has a forward-looking approach? So I think the reason we have these molecules, no coincidence. We work with 18 of the top 20 pharma companies. And as they're looking at expanding the footprint in India, at some point, if somebody's going to second or triple source, so by default, you're going to get that volume as long as you're the top tier of where you are. So I don't think there's a magic bullet. It's a question of the vision of the company to really be good. It's not about short-term profitability, but long-term, are you going to continue to invest in technologies? Are you going to continue to invest in digital platforms? Because every company is building digital platforms. Are you digital enabled enough to be fitting into their ecosystem? Are you going to investing in people? Because it's about how do people think as scientists, going here from a pair of hands. It's a question of what you're doing in terms of infrastructure, in terms of newer modalities. Are you taking a long-term view of that? So I'd love to come in there. There's a single magic bullet, but it's not. It's the question of intent to be different, intent to catch up to the Chinese, not to think short term, think extremely strategic. So it's really about building a world-class organization. So we have to think about, hey, we're on this long journey. Is this company going to invest with us in 5 years, or have I wasted my time in 5 years? So I think is companies will show that intent across parameters. I'd love to come and say there's no single magic bullet. It's the culture of innovation, culture of improvement, culture of wanting to be the best globally and believing you can compete with China, which gets you there. Uh, Unfortunately, not a single magic bullet will get you there.
Sure. Uh, we are into 20 minutes of this discussion. We already have a few good questions trickling in. So your responses have definitely excited our audiences, which we will take probably towards the end of the session if we have time. So my next question will be to Amit. Again, you are pioneering a very different frontier, cell and gene therapies, which represents the cutting edge of biopharmaceutical innovation. India has traditionally been strong in generics and biosimilars, but advanced therapies require different infrastructure, expertise, and regulatory pathways. So, what market dynamics are you observing that makes this the right moment for India to enter this space? At the start, you mentioned it's a very exciting place to be in. So, what does success look like for making this expensive therapies accessible in India and potentially in other emerging markets?
Michael and Vikas, thank you for having me over. See, India is at a very, very interesting point right now. I mean, if you heard both Deepak and Krishna, I mean, I counted the number of times they said China in their talk. So there's a lot going on in my field in China. I'm going to talk about that in a bit. I've been tracking the news for the last few months, and it's so interesting that the largest brand and therapy suddenly in India has become GLPs, which just talks about how aware and willing the Indian citizen, patient, consumer, whichever way you call it, is willing to spend in class-leading therapies now. It's no longer a question of why should I do it. At the same time, because I read somewhere that India has as many rich people as Europe, as many middle-class people as Mexico, and as many upcoming people as Africa, right? So you're literally catering to 3 different segments in a space that has minimal to very little health insurance and very little real world data. So we have millions of people who are getting afflicted with cancer, and a large chunk of them are with blood cancers, is where Immuneel is focusing on, with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma and over a period of time, both leukemia and multiple myeloma. The good news is that this therapy, which has been there for more than a decade now globally, has shown tremendous outcomes. The challenge is that some of the big biopharma companies who invested ahead of the curve are relooking at their models, right? So you have you hear news of a Novo or a Takeda or a Sanofi and others reassessing what they want to do in cell and gene therapy. And I wouldn't go into the reasons of that, but I think that one of the things that is ahead of us to solve for, especially for a country like India, and I think while solving for India, we will solve it for the rest of the world, is to how to make this therapy affordable and accessible. And that has been the reason, the existence for Immuneel. A therapy that costs $500,000 in the US, we've managed to bring the cost down by 90%. And we are establishing that as a template for India, and hopefully, as we continue our journey forward, this will be a template from India for the rest of the world. Our initial hypothesis was that as we move forward, we will be very relevant for countries who are of certain income profiles. But interestingly, Vikas, we are also now having discussions with countries irrespective of income, because this problem of cost and scale is a problem everywhere. It's not just a problem of developing and middle income countries. So that's one. I think India is at a very, very interesting point, because the innovation in cell and gene therapies has been majorly concentrated in this side of the world. I was in China 2 weeks ago in an Asia CEO conference for cell and gene therapies. I was the only Indian company amongst 300 Chinese companies.
Wow.
I see that as an opportunity, because I think that it's a playing field that is still open. And cell and gene therapy is different from some of the other innovation, because it's not just the therapy, it's also the modality. It's what you build and how you manufacture it goes hand in hand. And I think that's where the interesting angle for India lies. If we can solve, and if we can be agile and ahead of the curve, based on what some of the others in the West have done, and not do the same thing, but jumpstart it. And India has done it in telecom. India has done it in fintech.
Yep.
I don't see a reason why India can't do it in cell and gene therapy. Of course, a lot needs to be done on regulation, on the infrastructure, and we can continue that. But I think we are ripe for that as of now. And that's what gives us the excitement and the confidence to actually continue to move forward. Success for us, Vikas, is treating more patients. I think it's very, very simple. We want to treat as many patients as possible. I mean, that's success for us. And at some point, if this model, which we are trying to build, is a global model for the rest of the world to adopt, then I think India would have given something which the West hasn't been able to give in this area.
So I mean, it's commendable your emphasis on affordability. I want to pick on one of the sort of things that you mentioned, and that's around the sort of the regulatory pathways and also maybe reimbursement models. To where is India in its establishment of regulatory pathways and reimbursement models? Particularly as the industry is still nascent. Or do you think it's important that India establishes something now rather than sort of wait for the therapies to become more established globally?
Michael, there are 2 or 3 things already happening. I think that the regulator and our government has understood and appreciated that innovation, and especially biotech innovation, is something that they need to support and promote. And it is very critical in their current agenda. If you look at the ANRF, which is a fund for innovation, it's billions of dollars. If you look at the PRIP scheme that has been launched by the Department of Pharma to encourage partnership between industry and academia and to drive innovation for India and from India, they're taking some of the right steps in bringing together an ecosystem, in trying to encourage startups and innovators, not only to work individually, but also to work with academic institutions and hospitals, which is what some of the other countries did, right? They brought industry, healthcare, and the academic institutions together, and then they brought the government to support them. Having said that, I think that we are still taking steps to move forward on how to ease the regulatory pathway for quicker assets to move to clinic, and also for innovation to happen in a more broad-based manner. And by that, I mean, if you look at what's happening in China, right? For example, again, because it's where cell and gene has taken off a lot.
Yep.
The assets move into clinic almost between 30 to 45 days, right? Because the ecosystem to drive the initial innovation is very well established. China announced its biotech policy in 2010. We are sitting in 2025, and China has become the source of 80% of the cell and gene therapy pipeline to the world, right? And I think that we need to take away some of the learnings from there. And to me, one is, how do you fast track assets into the clinic, right? What do you need to do? And especially in the cell and gene therapy area, you have to work with the hospitals, because being an autologous therapy and being precision medicine, you have to make sure that you're working as close to the patient as possible. So you got to have innovation that's not just happening in an R&D lab, but innovation happening as close to the patient as possible. So that's one. I think the second thing is that we need to make sure that some of the best practices from the West are very quickly adapted into our model. And by that, I mean, we need to figure out a model where some of these trials could be more adaptive, right? Because especially in cell and gene therapy, as the trials are taking place, you could have a situation where you could innovate and not just pinpoint yourself, because these trials are so expensive, not just pinpoint yourself into a specific area. We have to be very agile to make that. I think the third thing that needs to be done, which is where there were significant challenges in scaling this up, is to encourage more localized manufacturing of biomedical equipment, reagents, vectors, and everything else, which is a great ecosystem that China has developed, right? Because if you bring some of these costs down, you actually bring, the cost of the procedure down. And as of today, 80 to 90% of everything that we are doing, or any cell therapy company is doing, is actually using imported reagents, imported equipment, imported raw material, right? Which has a certain cost floor that we can't even bring down till we localize it. So I think the regulation really has to encourage us to build this ecosystem up. And this is the time, because, the slate is clean for everybody.
No, some really interesting points. And in fact, if anybody's interested in understanding how China has gone from 2010 to 2025 so rapidly, we published last year a report which highlighted some of the big policy decisions. And in fact, in the next week or so, we are exploring further what we're calling China Innovation 2.0, just to sort of show that China is really taking this seriously, and it's probably a good model, particularly for India. Sort of in my introductory remarks, I mentioned also the patent cliff, right, or the looming patent cliff, where we're going to see billions of dollars of revenues are or molecules that are representing billions of dollars of revenues are going to be losing patent protection. So in this sort of the interest of time, I'd like to just ask each of you a quick response, from your own specific domain, whether it's API, small molecules, or advanced biologics, to just explain your company's strategy to capitalize on this patent cliff, and what's the one capability that Indian companies must get right to compete effectively. So Deepak, would you like to kick off, sir?
Sure. So I think this patent cliff that you're talking about is indeed a very high value set of products going off patent. The difference between this patent cliff and the ones that we've seen in the past is that this time we have a very substantial chunk of large molecules as well In the past, it was largely driven by small molecules. You had the typical situation around the Lipitors of the world going off patent and everybody rushing to get in there. What is different now is that this patent cliff is a combination of small molecules and large molecules. And therefore, I think the one imperative factor for success, no matter whether you're a generic company or an API company or a biosimilar company, is going to be your ability to be first to market. That perhaps is the singular most important requirement for you to succeed and derive the maximum value out of the patent cliff that is coming in. Let me give you a quick set of examples on what we are trying to do at Dr. Reddy's. For us, the strategy is built around early identification, creating those proof of concept of those products very early in the game, and scaling up so that we are well positioned to file every product on the first possible day from a regulatory perspective. Now, this means working closely with customers of all hues, whether they are the B2B or the B2C customers, as well as the emerging biosimilar developers to ensure long-term partnerships. So this preemptive development of APIs, preemptive development of proof of concept of some of the biosimilars, filing the product well ahead of the LOEs across different countries in the world, leveraging some of our capabilities in process innovation and chemistry to make sure that what you're filing and what will get you to the market is not just first, but also cost efficient so that it enables you to stay in the game for a meaningful period of time. And basically combine the technical sophistication with regulatory predictability in the context of, let's say, flexible capacity so that you can derive the maximum value out of the patent cliff that's coming in. So that's what we're trying to do in a nutshell. And this extends from the API to the finished dose formulations to the generics to the biosimilars. One last point. We are conscious of the fact that not everything is possible by ourselves. And therefore, the way to do it is also to collaborate very effectively. Look for the right complements, look for the places where you're not probably the best in the world. So find those partners and get into a situation where you can collaborate with them to make the most of it.
All right. And Krishna, any
Okay,
thoughts?
I think if you look at what is happening in the CDMO, CRO sector, right? If you look at what large pharma primarily is worried about right now is how do I quickly fill my pipeline? So you're going to see maybe a two-stage effect. I think large pharma is primarily looking at acquiring any late phase assets they can get, a phase 2B, phase 3. They want to buy as de-risk asset as possible. So you will see most of the companies with business 7-8 years with late stage assets will be off the market within the next couple of years, 18 months or so. I think in the immediate term, you will see a lot of business coming in pharma, especially from tech transfer, because as they license in molecules, they want to bring them into their preferred partner network. So I think the immediate thing we will see is business coming in on the later stage side of it. But I think what that will do for us longer term, I think as these mature molecules leave the market, I think you'll see a refunding of the biotech ecosystem. And I think you'll restart the R&D system where you see the CRO grow up. So I think it's going to be a two-prong approach. I think next 12 to 18 months, you're going to see a lot more late phase deals happening, which is going to help the CDMO/development side of the business. But I think in the next 3 years, you will see the regeneration of new companies helping the biotech and the next wave of modalities, technologies coming in. So we're going to see a two-phased approach to this, which is healthy because I think biotech is struggling at this point. And I think it's important for these deals to happen for investors to make money, to refunnel that money back in the biotech. So I think we're just in that cycle right now, which is going to play out very aggressively over the next couple of years. It will be painful for a few, but I think this is a necessary regeneration of the capital unit in the market at this point.
And Amit, is that what you're seeing as the opportunity associated with the patent cliff?
I'm just showing the reflection with the particular opportunity, right? So our opportunity depends on how the market behaves. Innovators are behaving by trying to ensure that we can get as many molecules to take up the revenue. So we are, end of the day, we are basically depending on how they behave, and our opportunity comes in where their area of need is, which is manufacturing short term and development, because most assets they're getting are not manufacturing ready. They're phase 2B, phase 3, which are coming in, which they need a development slash manufacturing partner. I think that'll be a significant tailwind for the sector, at least for the next 12 to 18 months, while the R&D pipeline is building up.
Amit.
Yeah, Michael, I'll just add my 2 cents. It's not core focus for us, of course. The patent
Yeah.
case doesn't affect us. But from my earlier times in IQVIA, I think one of the things I had picked up, apart from what's really happening in biosimilars and others, is this era is different because you have a lot more technology that is going into repurposing, creating quote unquote mass specialty kind of molecules, right? And I saw that in my time there, where some of the large pharma companies were really leveraging technology to figure out how they could add value to molecules that were going off patent. And I think that's the difference that will happen this time.
So, hey, Vikas, that's a good segue into
Exactly.
our next section, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah. That's exactly what I was actually thinking. So, our next section is about technology and AI integration, and I'll have Krishna come in here first. So, you've spoken about investing in technology and taking a long term view to compete with the best globally. Now, let's talk a little specific. How is AI driven process optimization seen? Is it a big game changer? According to Clarivate's data, companies that integrate AI into early stage development are reducing cycle times by at least up to 20%. Are you experiencing similar gains in your operations? Have you really taken up AI in a big way in drug development and discovery?
I think it's a very tricky question, right? We can't put the cart ahead of the horse. I think the first journey is digitalization. I think right now, I think the models, I guess everybody's talked about, even the last time we talked about the models are mature, because we remember the comment we made that the models themselves are mature. The question is the data available? So most companies right now can still only work on public data, which will definitely help you get there, because at least you're able to use public data retrosynthesis tools to get you a better starting point. Are they going to get you the end point? No, but clearly by using what's available from the retrosynthesis tools in the public domain, you're able to go faster. But I think the bigger journey companies are on at this point is trying to figure out how to capture data from both R&D and manufacturing going forward. So I think most companies are not really, I would say, AI ready. People are really building the backend infrastructure and tech stack and the instrumentation to be able to start capturing data across the board, right? Capturing data, the discovery side, development side, manufacturing side. So I would say the next 2 years, people are really getting ready to become AI enabled. And I think most companies are finding out that their existing, I would say, tech structure does not support really large scale AI tools. So what you are seeing is you might have a few AI tools coming in, but I think you will see the next 2 years are going to be very focused on digitalization, and tech capture. And the next 3, 4, 5 years, you will see a lot more of these optimization of processes, optimization of your discovery engine, better starting points, reducing your basically DMPK, maybe more predictive models there, your as biomarkers, etc. So I think you'll have a lot more tools in the toolbox in the next couple of years. And like again, I said, these are force multipliers. These are not game changers. These are all going to be force multipliers. Especially the challenge here is going to be, we all say that data is king, but now data is siloed. Every pharma, everybody has their own data. Unless they really come together, you really won't get the full benefit for the entire ecosystem. So I still think it's we're a little bit away yet to really kind of say that we are really seeing AI being effective. But in the next couple of years, I think you will see the much better use cases of AI as we move forward.
Mike?
Yeah, no, I think sort of in the time allotted, I think we should just sort of carry on with your lead on these questions.
Right. So yeah, so I was wanted to ask Deepak next about the Dr. Reddy's has long been recognized for its process innovation and commitment to green chemistry. You've been a UN Global Compact signatory since 2010. As the industry faces increasing pressure on sustainability, whether it's reducing solvent dependency, adopting green synthesis routes, minimizing environmental impact. How is Dr. Reddy's embedding these principles into its API development without compromising on costs?
Thank you, Vikas. And I'll kind of try to combine this answer with a little bit of building upon what Krishna said in the previous response. So, first on sustainability and green chemistry, I think one of the things that Dr. Reddy's has tried to do is to embed this principle now for a fairly long period of time. It's been more than a decade since we've been doing it. And let's say there is a designing for sustainability from day one that we've tried to put in place. And this is something we've gained a fair bit of experience over the past few years. So if you look at the R&D teams when they're developing a product, they're not just looking at the safety and the scalability, but also the sustainability of the product. So right from the early stage, what does it translate into? It translates into things like solvent recovery. It translates into things like substitution. So, for example, there's a conscious effort to minimize class 2 solvents so that you can replace toxic reagents with greener alternatives wherever possible. So, a lot of the solvents now at our manufacturing sites are recovered and reused so that both cost and emissions are reduced. Secondly, there is now a significant amount of effort that we're trying to make on biocatalysis and on flow chemistry. So, increasingly using enzymatic steps and flow reactors in synthesis to not just improve the yield, but to cut down on waste and to enhance process safety. Uh, Third, I think there is a significant investment on energy efficient manufacturing. So there is a transition happening to renewable energy at all our sites. Our goal is to get to 100% by 2030. We are around 60% currently. And that's something which we feel we will over deliver and achieve that number prior to 2030. So while all of this are these steps going on, I do want to mention that there is sometimes a feeling that green trades off with cost or speed. So it need not be the case if you design it well at the early stage. In fact, a sustainable process will often result in better economy, lower energy usage, and higher yields, which will significantly contribute to the cost competitiveness. It's also connected to, let's say, the risk that you want to take in terms of how the external environment is going. And the balance often manifests itself in risk based process designs in which you actually do proactive risk assessment across safety, quality, and environmental impact. And the green chemistry principles are applied so that they never compromise molecular integrity or patient safety. So, those are some of the things that we are trying to do. We're committed to it, and this is a journey now. We have a fair bit of experience over the past decade or so, and we are going to further intensify our efforts on this journey.
Sure. So, so Deepak's side is very mature. It's in stages where they can actually look at various ways in which new technologies can be adopted. Yours, Amit, is just at a starting stage, as you mentioned, and as we know, cell and gene therapy is incredibly data intensive and process critical. Slight variations here and there can probably affect a lot of efficacy and safety issues. So, what's the story at your organization on digital transformation, automation, AI? Are we building Immuneel therapy that direction your side?
So Vikas, on AI, I think we need to probably contextualize it in how much it is helping us improve productivity right now, vis-a-vis what it is really doing to drive more value-added intelligence, etc., etc., etc. Right? From our standpoint, I think we are seeing interesting use cases of AI in our early stage binder evaluations. So it helps us cut to the chase, gives us different options of different constructs, binders, crystals that we can then move to the next stage of evaluation in the lab. And hopefully, these are still early days, but I'm hoping that some of these efforts may help us identify some novel assets. So that's as far as our journey with respect to usage of AI is for now, right? And as we move along, we may see other further use cases. For cell and gene therapy, however, technology and data become so important because it is an autologous process, right? So we have a centralized manufacturing, but we have point of care infusions. We have now have a network of 60 odd hospitals across the country where we are doing infusions, shipping the CAR T, which is the enriched T cell blood, back to these hospitals. And because it's an autologous therapy, you have to make sure that what you're manufacturing for the patient and what you're giving back to the patient is exactly the same. Otherwise, it could have very, very detrimental effects, right? A patient could literally die if the wrong CAR T is infused to the wrong patient. So tracking and tracing, making sure throughout the entire manufacturing process, we are tracking what's really going on. So that's one, where we use technology. I think the second is because we are using so many biological agents as well as different temperatures in which the products as well as the reagents are moving, we have to real-time monitor what is coming in at say -8, what is going out at -150, where the temperatures are. So we literally have real-time monitoring of the entire process that is going on. That's second. The third is and this is also mandated by the government because it's a regulator, because it's a novel therapy, is generating real-time, real-world evidence as well as persistence data, where we have to work very closely with the hospitals as well as labs. And this is a learning process because many of these hospitals see patients who have traveled hundreds of kilometers for their CAR T infusion and then they go back and then they get treated in another hospital. So these are very realistic challenges of what India has. Patients get treated for different and follow-ups at different places, right? And we have to track these patients throughout the journey, which is an evolving process for us. And we are now evaluating working with some of these digital companies that can work across multiple hospital networks and aggregate that patient journey for us over a period of time. The last point I would mention, and this has happened in Europe, it is happening in other areas, is that this therapy is moving to an outcome-based model, especially for reimbursement. And at some point, we would really want to make sure that even in India, we are working with the reimbursement agencies, whether they are insurers or even government, in generating enough data on outcomes and on long-term response to be able to have these payers take calls on how they price these products. Because it's incredibly important, especially for high-value products, that outcome data is getting generated, tracked, and then built into the reimbursement model. Otherwise, it will never drive adoption, nor will it actually move into replacing some of the other treatments that are actually unnecessary once CAR T is administered, right? You can actually do away with some modalities once you administer the CAR T. So those costs can come down, but that can only happen if you generate the right data sets as an industry and the right registries to be able to then offer it back to the insurers and government.
Sure.
I mean, I think again that's some really interesting points there, and again, it's a nice segue into competitive positioning. So, Vikas, over to you, sir.
Right. No, so we have all but about 6 minutes left. So, broad observations on competitive positioning. Mike, you want to uh, ask some questions on that so that we wrap up in time?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think one of the things, and it's something that Krishna was kind of highlighting, and it's around sort of sort of regulatory confidence. So we've for example, Krishna's company has received regulatory approvals over multiple jurisdictions, and I'm just sort of wondering, are we as we sort of see harmonization of India's growing regulatory sort of landscape with the sort of the US FDA and EMA, are we seeing faster acceptance of Indian manufacturing during the due diligence process? So Krishna, would you sort of
I think,
like
to be
to
honest,
take that on?
I think definitely that stigma of the past is gone. I think I can definitely clear the confidence in the Indian system has been high. So we really had a. Let me put this way. I think, honestly speaking, I see a much more forward-looking outlook in terms of our interaction with most of our authorities. It's no longer, they're not coming with a negative lens of saying, okay, this is what we're going to find. It's more about this. We like what we see. How much further can we go? So I think it's gone from a trust mode to where do we go more at this point. So I feel fairly confident where we are in our regulatory journey across Dr. Reddy's, all the companies. I say for India in general, I feel fairly confident that we're on the right track in terms of being trusted partner.
Right. Amit, I mean, you're competing in a space which is, traditionally has been dominated by Western innovators and established biotech hubs, and now we're seeing the sort of the rise of China. So what do you sort of envisage as the competitive positioning for Indian and cell gene therapy companies?
Michael, I think the point I made when I started the discussion is that cell and gene is not just about innovation on a novel asset, it is also the modality. And I think companies that will remain agile and will continue to move up the curve, both on manufacturing process, while they are able to keep a window on both scale and cost, are companies that will survive. And this is given that the bedrock of quality has to be global quality, right? Especially in a high value therapy, you cannot compromise on quality and outcomes. So given that as a base, companies that are able to continue to challenge themselves on bringing the cost down, challenge themselves on innovation and automation through different manufacturing platforms, while having the ability to work on different novel assets, which is what we are doing, right? We have our own pipeline, we are co-developing, but we are positioning ourselves as a platform company. We're saying, look, as long as we solve for manufacturing scale and efficiency, we will have the ability to bring the right therapies to India and beyond at the right cost, which is affordable and accessible. I think that's the trajectory I feel.
Right, right. And Deepak, I mean, you're operating in sort of the API space, and there are some big global competitors. So, what is Dr. Reddy's differentiation? Is it cost, speed, technical capability, or something else? And frankly, where do Indian API manufacturers still have ground to make up, versus these global leaders?
Sure. So I think from an India perspective, the API and the CDMO piece, which many of us represent here, is I feel very optimistic about it, and I feel optimistic about it not just for one dimension like cost or speed, but for the ability to now think end to end and to create something that's a meaningful solution for people who need it. What does it mean? It means speed and enabling first to market. It means cost, which allows you to stay through the mature phases of the product life cycle, and it also means being constantly agile to create those solutions which might be required through the life cycle of the product. This coupled with some of the other aspects, especially the digital aspect which was spoken about, I feel that's going to be perhaps the key differentiator for the Indian API and CDMO industry going ahead. And we'll be able to put together a very compelling proposition of cost, speed, regulatory compliance, backed up with a very strong digital capability that can help us grow a lot more from where we are today.
Right. Now I'm going to sort of jump into what is my sort of my favorite subject, and that's around investment and the sort of the financial perspectives. So yeah, let's talk about investment capital allocation. So from each of your perspectives, what are the areas where within the sort of the Indian pharma and life sciences space that you believe are the most attractive to investors, particularly global investors right now? And where do you see the sort of the capital gaps, the areas that desperately need investment that maybe are not getting enough attention at the moment? So if we could start with Deepak, then go to Krishna and Amit, and if you could keep your answers as super succinct as possible, that would be great. So Deepak.
Okay. So maybe the investor hotspots that I see at the moment, clearly I see CDMO as an investor hotspot at the moment. I see biologics as an investor hotspot. I also see digital health, AI-driven platform, medtech, diagnostic as one more investor hotspot. So let's say these three categories would be my pick on the hotspots. The underserved areas, capital starved areas would probably be a little bit around green chemistry, around maybe tier 2, tier 3 rural healthcare delivery, rare diseases, orphan drugs, mental health. Those would be the areas which I feel are currently underserved areas which might be socially relevant, public health relevant, but not sexy enough. So that's my quick take.
Yeah. Krishna.
From my standpoint, look, we're in CDMO. Obviously, CDMO is a hotspot in general, but I think what we're going to be seeing, I think right now, the markets are still trying to understand how the Indian CDMO is going to play out long term. I think they're probably a little bit confused between profitability versus investment cycle. I think what really needs to happen in the next 4 or 5 years, India needs to go on a very strong investment cycle to match up capability vis-a-vis China. And I don't know if the public markets yet realize that we're actually in the investing phase, not the harvesting phase. So that's the unknown. But the appetite is clearly there to understand. And I think for the companies which differentiate, I think there's money available at this point.
Amit.
Michael, biotech has been a challenge globally. So I think India is the same. The added challenge for India is there is no public market available for innovative assets, right? Till you show revenue. So there's an added hurdle. The positive light is there's a lot of wealth, especially family offices, corporates that are becoming more investing classes, right? So there's a lot of wealth that is coming in. I agree with Deepak and Krishna. The only one I would add is the area of oncology. I see a lot of investment that is happening in oncology as an area in India, whether it's delivery, whether it's innovation around it, whether it's diagnostics or even digital health.
So Vikas, over to you, sir.
Yeah, right. Extremely interesting topics we've covered. I think we still can take one or two questions which have come from the audiences. Really overwhelming response. We have a bunch of questions. A lot have been answered through the discussions, but one which I think I'll pick up from Lipika, which says, we are the third largest in supplying APIs globally, but still 80% starting material for synthesis we are purchasing from China. How far this statistics is true and how India is working to improve it? I think that goes straight for Deepak.
So I think Lipika is right. The number is around 65 to 70%, and there is still a lot of dependence in China. As I mentioned earlier, the way forward is probably to look at it more from a collaborative and complementary lens, while at the same time building your capabilities in parallel to do the things which are required from a strategic perspective for India and Indian pharma. So that's why backward integration of some of the key products, some of the most important APIs going back all the way to the KSM level is extremely important, and keeping your supply chain de-risked with China and India as two options is probably the way forward. It's a long journey, but I do feel optimistic about some of the steps that have been taken in the past couple of years. Some schemes like the PLI scheme, some investment that's going to happen in states like Andhra Pradesh, with the government coming together with the with the private sector to create something that really gives us and facilitates economies of scale. Those are some of the things which I feel can help us address this over the long term. But for now, it's going to be a combination of strategic areas to backward integrate plus collaborating effectively.
Perfect. One more, which I'll pose to Krishna from Rajan Ramalingam. I see the big pharma companies are getting in the CMO space. How will Indian pharma be impacted by that?
Big pharma CMO, I think it's a whole different ballgame, right? I think big pharma specific to CMO is primarily on the biologics side. I think if you look at what's happening in the biologics area, the yields have just gone up significantly, right? So I think everybody has built capacity, which is 10 times what they need. And I think a lot of large pharma are trying to get into manufacturing, but the reality is it's never a core business for them. I don't really think it's really sustainable. I think they lose interest very quickly once their other products are kicking. So I think I've never seen any large pharma, with the exception of Pfizer, one, which really has dedicated outsourcing out for a long period of time. For most people, it's a tactical play, which really has not panned out over the long run. So I'm not too plussed about the large pharma being, it's not in their DNA to really be suppliers.
Yep, absolutely. So I think from our side, it's a wrap. Excellent commentaries came from our fabulous speakers. I think we chose the right people. One emerging biotech, one very established player, and of course, a very, very fast emerging CDMO. I can't say it's emerging, it's a very established, strong player. But yes, I mean, the opportunities are still unending. Mike, closing comments from you.
Well, I sort of think, some of the things that we've touched on, the patent cliff, the Biosecure Act, the rise of AI, biosimilars boom. These are not isolated trends. They're converging forces that are creating a once in a generation opportunity for India. The question is, will India seize it?
Absolutely. I think, yeah, that's the big question. I think it's all on the horizon. A lot of opportunities in the last at least 1 or 2 years. We are seeing all moves being made, which is positive. Deepak spoke about PRIP, and I think Amit also mentioned about the funds. Regulations do remain a bit of a question, but I think some positive signals have definitely emerged in the last couple of months. So thank you so much to all our great speakers. We look forward to again reconvening. It's a topic where probably a lot of our questions are still unanswered, and of course the audience has definitely enjoyed the discussion. Everyone held along all through this last 1.5, probably about 60, 70 minutes. So thank you so much again, and look forward to more such discussions. Thank you again.